Tired of feeling like you're spinning all the plates in your design business and at any moment they could all come crashing down? Are you feeling like you're so close to breaking through to the next level, but those consistent projects still aren't flowing your way? Are you ready to finally take your business from a hobby to 100K and beyond? Then welcome to the Six Figure Designer Podcast. I'm talking all the techniques you need in your design business to start paying yourself, get great clients, and finally break through that 5-figure ceiling. Well, hey everyone, welcome to another live. Today, we're actually going to be talking about one of the things that I don't love about welcome packets. But before I do that, I know I've kind of gotten everybody thinking about me going live on Wednesdays, but today is Friday and I'm going live to you today because I was actually out of town over the last couple of days. So we're just giving you the same live. We're just doing it on a different day and looking forward to having you guys on the call today on the live with me. So thank you so much. I have a seminar coming up in just a few weeks called Sales for Introverts. So if selling in your interior design business is just not your thing, or you're finding that you're not able to, the potential clients or the clients that you're dealing with, their expectations are way out of line in terms of what's going on with how you run your business and how you run those projects, or you're just not getting the type of projects that you want, then go ahead and sign up for the Sales for Introverts free webinar that's coming up. The link for the sign up is in my bio, but let's just say happy Friday, everyone. I don't know if you're as happy as I am that today we are getting ready for the weekend, but today I'm going to be talking about why I'm not a lover of welcome packets. I know so many of you have beautiful welcome packets that you put together. And it's actually not that I'm not a fan of welcome packets, but I want you to be thinking about setting some expectations up long before you're hired and the timing of how to do some of that. So most of the times when, as designers, we get a call, of course, we're so excited to sort of have that hot lead, right? That person that's ready to do something right now. And we're creators, right? So we love the fact that we get to go ahead and start a new project and deal with a new client and be creatively, challenged in a new way. So we kind of get overexcited and move things along way too quickly. And it comes back to, go ahead and bite us in the butt, basically, because we're just so excited. So most of the times we get that call and we just cannot wait. We cannot wait to start that project. And we want to just get out there, right? We want to get out there. We want to look at what we're doing, and we want to get that client signed. But I'm going to tell you to go ahead and take a minute and do it in a different way. So a lot of times we just sort of run out there and we want to go ahead and just get the project started. But I'm going to tell you how I do it in my business, and that will just help you learn how to better pre-qualify clients. So we kind of just slow down that first process. So the first thing is we always find out who referred us, because of course most of our jobs are coming from referral, and we're getting that client's name. So the first thing we do is we contact the referral source and we talk to them a little bit about how the client's coming to us, what they know about the client. Maybe they know the project address or the scope. All that information is super helpful for us to know ahead of time, because we want to be doing a little bit of research ahead of time before we actually set up a call, which is what I do, is I set up a little pre-qualifying call with the client. Now, one of the things is, yes, I will find out what people think the scope is going to be, what maybe the referral source thinks the scope is going to be. But I'm finding that a lot of times the clients, because they've never hired a designer before, their idea of what the scope is can vary greatly. So I am not a big fan of sort of not talking to someone because they have filled out the online form and their scope or whatever is not what I'm looking for, because I've seen so many clients changed in terms of what the scope is. I received a referral from somebody who told me that this client just wanted to do a built-in in their living room. I did not discount this lead and went ahead and talked to them, and come to find out that that was completely wrong, that they actually wanted to do like 5 rooms in their home. And to kind of circle back in terms of what that has meant to my business. So they've done a $100,000 project and are now doing another $100,000 project. So we did the first part of the house. Now we're doing a second part of the house. And they had originally said that they just wanted to do a built-in. And so I am not, again, a big fan of taking the words of somebody who's coming to me that they have this much to spend or they have this level of scope. I would rather talk to them and educate them and talk to them a little bit more about what's going on. So I always set up a pre-call with people, and I also do a little bit of research. I would go on Zillow and kind of find out what the value of the property is, where it's located if I'm not familiar with it. And it just gives me a lot more information to go on. We go ahead and set up a call, and then I go through my own pre-qualifying script. And what I do after that is decide, is this project something that I'm interested in? Is it a yes or is it a no? Of course, if it's a no, we're going to be saying thank you so much, but I don't think it's a good fit. And maybe giving them the name of somebody else or directing them somewhere else that they can go for a resource like an industry site or something like that where they can look up other qualified designers. If it's a yes, then we go ahead and set up that time for that first meeting. Now, I know that there's different schools of thought as to whether or not you charge for that first meeting. I think that you need to be figuring out in your own business, like what you're running up against. Are you having a lot of instances where people are not moving forward with you? And of course, you want to be thinking about why that is. But if you feel like you're driving all over the place and you're going to a lot of meetings and you're sort of spinning your wheels a lot of time, some of that can be mitigated by the pre-qualifying process, which happens before you physically go on site with them. But you can also charge them for that call. I personally do not do that because my process is such a way, and the clients that are coming to me, my close rate is like 90 some percent. So if we get to this process and we're working together or I'm going on site, pretty much those projects are happening. But if you're, again, running into, you're trying to build your business, you're trying to figure out who your best client is and what type of project you're looking for, or if you're trying to up level. So now you're going to like maybe a new level of business, bigger projects, better clients, that kind of thing. And you're new to this, you might be charging for that fee just till you get your feet wet, until you understand. Or maybe it works out really well for you. Maybe it's a part of your business that actually brings in a fair amount of money, and it obviously compensates you for your time. So you have to think about what your time is worth in that instance and, where it's going to go from there. So once we do a pre-qual and I decide that, yes, this is someone that I want to work with, and actually I'll be talking about in the Sales for Introverts course, I'll kind of be talking about the script that you can use to qualify a client, certain words that they're saying that have made a big difference, and ways that you can guide them through the process to help you pre-qualify if they're a good fit for you. So once we make that on-site meeting, then I go ahead and send them some documents ahead of time before our meeting. And I call that my shock and awe box. And it may include some of the things that you're doing in your welcome packet, but there's some reasons for that. What I'm doing is we're setting expectations ahead of time. So if you're finding that you're getting a lot of clients that don't understand the process, or don't understand how long things take, or have never worked with a designer before, or maybe has worked with a designer in a different way, meaning if you interview them and you ask them, have you ever worked with a designer before? And they say, Yes, we worked with someone who passed on our discounts, or we worked with someone who's done hourly, and you're working in a capacity where you're doing flat fee and you're not passing on the discount. Like if you need to reset those expectations because you would be working a different way than what they're used to, this is what this shock and awe box can do. It sets all those expectations, answers so many questions, talks about how it would be like to work with you and why things take as long as they take or how long pieces of the process take. So when I started sending this package ahead of time, my close rate went way, way up. And I was also getting much, much better clients because they knew the rules of the game and they understood that this is how I was going to be working with them. And if they were good with it, then 9 times out of 10, they were fine with all of the things that came after that. So this is why I'm not that big of a fan of welcome packets because that's happening after. So if you got hired by a client and then you send them this welcome package that says, this is how we work. This is the days we're going to communicate with you. And this is how we handle these questions and all of that. They're knowing all of that after the fact. What if we were to educate them more before the fact and to tell them how it's going to be to work with us, what they can expect in terms of timelines, why we're not going to be passing along our discount, what if they see something somewhere else, how should they handle that? How do we like to communicate? We're kind of giving them the rules of the game and the boundaries of how we're going to be running this project. And if they have a problem with that, they're going to bring it up beforehand. And so this way, you're also going to be able to address those issues, talking through whether or not they're going to be on board with doing things maybe differently than they've done with another designer that they've worked with. And the reason I say another designer is because a lot of my clients have this is their second, third, fourth home. So they've worked with a designer in another area of the country. So that is why I would say not necessarily someone who's like fired several designers. That's always a big, scary portion of the interview process if you hear that. But I'm saying if they've worked with a designer in another location, if they have another home somewhere, they may have worked with somebody. And you also want to know like where their frame of reference is, more like their education on their experience before with another designer. Because if you're doing it differently, they're just going to take those assumptions from that first experience and transfer them to the experience they're going to have with you. So you want to be finding out like where are their heads at? What's their experience with working with a designer? You know, have they done a project, say, on their own, and this is the first time they're hiring someone? This all helps you. This is incredible information for you to go ahead and find out what they need to know in terms of being able to work with you. So I call this my shock and awe box, which I send ahead of time, ahead of our first in-person meeting, so they can go ahead and get introduced to you, how you work, what those rules of engagement are. I send a copy of my blank contract. You never want someone to kind of be blindsided by that contract. I've heard in so many of the groups where people will say, you know, I sent my 10-page contract and the client like literally freaked out. If they saw your 10-page contract ahead of time, they would not be concerned because they would be going, okay, I'm expecting this. This is a blank version of what I'm going to be expecting. Or you might have that discussion at your first meeting where somebody's saying, well, I'm thinking about changing a bunch of things in your contract. And you can be like, we really don't change anything in our contract because of X, Y, and Z. You have now not gone through that whole process of, and I know so many of you agonize over what to charge and you know the scope and making sure you're capturing all the changes and that you don't go over and all of those things. That takes up a lot of time. So if you're able to address some of these other items ahead of time, like why are we doing it this way? Why do we have these clauses? Why are we, very strict about our contract? These are things that should be coming up before you're hired, not after you're hired. Because I know that you all want to get these great projects, but if we rush this pre-qualification process too fast, That's when we run into problems later on because we start to discover things about the clients that we didn't know ahead of time just because we didn't have those discussions. Like we were just so excited to sign them up. So think about sending them some documents long before you're hired ahead of time. And I will say that this actually moves things really quickly along. Like from the time that I get that first call until the time that I'm actually hired can be, 5 days. It's a really, really quick process because they're very comfortable with what's happening. They know what to expect. They kind of know what that time frame is. And obviously, then we talk about pricing and things like that. But think about how you can send parts of that packet ahead of time to mitigate some of these, missteps that happen after the fact with expectations and boundaries and how you communicate and why you do certain things. So again, I want you to be thinking about this rather than that welcome packet because this really just helps them make that decision, right? We want to move them along. We want to create high levels of trust. We want to make them think that they're being well taken care of, but we also want to do it in a way that's going to say, this is how we work. This is the boundaries of what we're doing. This is why we work this way. So I want you to be thinking about going ahead and sending information ahead of time. Um, and let's see, I'm trying to think about any of the other things that I want to talk about. So it's helping set expectations, of course. I know that's a big thing is everyone like their expectation level is, just skewed in terms of how we normally would work. So again, you're putting all this in that. You're telling them how long things are generally going to take. Um, Eliminates a lot of confusion. Like, when is it going to start? How does this work? What's the process? How do we, once we say we get started, how long is it going to take for you to start working on our project? You're answering all of these questions ahead of time. And again, this sets those expectations so they know exactly what they're looking at. And it builds a lot of rapport up front. It builds a lot of trust. It helps you get to know them a little bit better. And the more conversations that you have with potential clients before they sign that dotted line and send you money gives you so much more insight into how that relationship's going to work. What do they think about designers? We've all had those clients that sort of treat us not great, that we're just, supposed to do their bidding as opposed to be creative and bring new ideas to the table, right? Sometimes these longer conversations ahead of time will help us, pick up more information about a client, more information about how they view our role in the project, and more ways that we can help them, just understanding where they're coming from, what their experience is, what their thought processes are. You'll hear, oh, my friend just did a project and blah, blah, blah. And then that's going to affect how they're feeling like their project is going to go because that's all they have. So this is, again, a great part of the education process. So I hope you guys have enjoyed thinking about the timing of when you can start sharing a lot more information, not in a welcome packet, but before you get hired to create trust, to set boundaries, to set expectations way ahead of time. And then also really just thinking about your own process and sending that blank contract. Now, if this is something that you're interested in learning more about, and if you want to have some help with that, I'm doing a free webinar coming up called Sales for Introverts, and we're going to be talking about why this is so effective and how you can start putting this together for yourself and in your own business to move trust along much more quickly, get those clients signed up, start closing better projects, and start setting expectations so that the clients know ahead of time what to expect and how it's going to be like to work with you. So if you're interested in that, I have a free webinar, Sales for Introverts. It's coming up in just a few weeks. The link is in my bio to get on the wait list. So I hope to see you guys there. And I hope this has helped you think about welcome packets a little bit differently. Start sending some items long before you're hired, and it's going to really help you get better projects close better clients, and set expectations up front. So thanks for joining me today on a Friday, guys. I will see you next week and we will talk soon. Take care.